Welcome to the Music Business Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Orlando Alvarez, and if you're desperate to break into the music business and want to hear tips and advices from insiders, this podcast is for you. You'll be able to discover from the professionals themselves what it takes to do what they do and where to start if you're a beginner. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Music Business Insight Podcast. I'm really happy to have here Anna Fahey. She's head of artist relations in Soundbox Plays, located in UK. Pretty excited to have her on the show today, and it's a true honor to introduce her to my audience and say hi.
Hey Orlando, hey everybody. Thanks so much for having me on today. Really excited to talk to you about interesting things that are happening in the music industry.
And we're here today to discuss royalties, the part of the business side that many artists, music producers and independent artists are out there just wondering what are the type of royalties they should be aware of and they should be collecting like right now. Many people don't have that information, and I want to make sure that they have a kind of complete picture, at least a general idea on what they should do. So can you talk us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, just to mention, my specialty is neighbouring rights royalties. So that's the one I feel, that I can talk easiest about to your audience and to inform them in the best possible way. Because there's a lot of confusion in neighbouring rights royalties. So absolutely your audience should be collecting these, and I'm going to explain about them and how to do it in a minute. But they should also be obviously looking at publishing royalties. So if they, for example, have written the song, they'd be able to get publishing copyright royalties, for example. And then sync licensing as well is another thing that's becoming quite common. So that's one for them to look into. Really depends on the artist's situation, okay? So for example, with neighbouring rights royalties, if you're a performer, you're entitled to neighbouring rights royalties. If you've provided any relevant audible content to a track that has been broadcast, so if it's been broadcast, for example, in on the radio or on television or in a licensed premises, then you would be entitled to neighbouring rights royalties. However, this is only the case in certain territories. So, for example, in the US, it's important to note that they've created something separate called digital performance royalties, as they didn't actually sign the initial agreement that was set up in 1961, which is the Rome Convention. So recently, there's been a bit of backlash from artists. So they had to create something, we'll say, to start the process. So they created digital performance royalties. And there's a company, for example, in the US, which is called Sound Exchange. You might be familiar with it. And they provide the license for this. So if you are a US artist, you can get these digital performance royalties, but they are effectively neighbouring rights royalties. It's the same thing. But you can only get them for digital radio, for example. You can't get them for terrestrial radio, as you can in the UK, for example. You can get them for terrestrial radio and digital radio, if that makes sense.
Got it. And it's super interesting because, it's confusing because we have different names for things, right. And especially we're talking about music, and music is universal. So the issue being there's a lot behind it in the business side, and depending on the country you live. So I'm pretty sure it's different also in the UK and in different places of the world as well. So being aware of the general things regarding your music, how to post it, and what royalties you should be collecting, it's important for artists. So just as a general, if you're posting a song, if you're just created your master, which is this, piece of audio and your song, and you're uploading it to distribution agency here in the US. We have DistroKid, which is pretty much international as well. DistroKid, CD Baby, there are a few others. I use DistroKid personally. And they collect mechanical royalties, which are going to be the streaming platform royalties that you should be getting. That's the kind of the first step. Then if you wrote the song, you get the publishing. And of course, that's a complex subject, because if you have more people in it, there's the split sheets, and then you divide the rights of the publishing or the songwriting. And then there's this thing which is neighboring right royalties, which are digital performance royalties here in the US, right?
Right, exactly. But effectively, but as I said before, it's just important to note that you can only get them in the US for digital radio. But they're the same. There's the same thing, okay? In that, if I'm an artist here and I'm an artist in the US and I do exactly the same thing, I'm entitled to these royalties. For example, let's say I go to the studio and I play bass, for example. At the studio, I record my work. I get paid my money, and then if I don't credit myself, I may never see anything from that again. However, I'm actually entitled to in that case. So that's really important to know, because artists who are very successful will have managers who will be looking into all of this for them. But that's not necessarily the case with, independent artists. So they have to do all of this kind of research themselves. So that's a lot, it's mind-blowing. I mean, it took me a while to really understand what was going on with neighbouring rights royalties. And it's constantly changing as well. So different territories are coming on board all of the time, and then they're changing the rules and everything. So it's mind-blowing. However, it's really just about making sure that you're credited every time you play at the studio. Because I think people think, oh, well, I'll just go and I'll play and I'll get paid, a few £100 or whatever it is, my fee for the day, and then I don't think about it anymore. Because maybe they think in their mind, oh, I can only get publishing royalties, for example. But that's not the case. They can get neighbouring rights royalties if they have played bass on a track at the studio. So they just need to really make sure that they're getting credited all of the time.
That's massive. Yeah.
Exactly. It's really, really important. Just another thing to mention as well is, let's say, for example, I, as an artist, gave the rights of my music to you as a label, okay? That doesn't mean that I won't be able to get neighbouring rights royalties anymore as well. So this is really important. So the label will get the first 50%, okay? And then the second 50% is divided between all of the artists who've performed on the track. So there are different splits in different countries, but it's always just, well, have I played on this track? If the answer is yes, have I been credited? Make sure that you get credited, and then you can get your neighbouring rights royalties. It might not be very much at first, but if you start playing for artists that have significant radio plays, it can add up. So
definitely.
Yeah, massively. Some session musicians here in the UK who will just have, let's say, played drums on a track, and they're non-featured artists, but they're playing on a track that's, got huge radio play. They could be getting £60,000-70,000 a year from neighbouring rights royalties. Wow. So it's it's pretty serious. And I think the more the information is spread around the world, the better it is, because, for example, your audience in the US will be like, well, I should be getting more royalties than too. So, why aren't we getting these royalties? Why are we not involved in this? And so they're going to want to push for this and to make sure that they're getting every possible royalty that they deserve, effectively.
Indeed. And I mean, it only makes sense that artists are, paid for the work. And sometimes we're just left stranded, and people don't know what to collect, don't know their rights, don't know what to push for in this area, because the end goal is that you make money actually with your music. And that's what we're striving for. That's the business part that everyone should be mindful of and should be thinking about, because it shouldn't be starving as a musician, because that's not how you should work. You should be collecting all type of royalties, and you should know your rights, and you should know what should be collected on your behalf if you're signed up with any of these companies. And just to put a spotlight on what you are actually doing with Soundbox Plays, what it's a job of Soundbox Plays, and especially you as a head of artist relations over there.
Yeah, sure. The vision for this company was put forward by Matt Cooling. He's the CEO of the company, and he had a studio here in Sutton and realized, okay, a lot of people don't realize what's going on here. Like, people are so unaware of this. So something needs to change. It should be changed from the beginning, okay? So not like down the line in the process. The big problem for people is they might go in and they might do a session, but then they completely forget to like credit themselves, for example. So he thought, okay, well, how can we solve this? And the idea came to him to allow the artists to actually credit themselves there and then, okay, at the studio. So you can use our site at the moment to credit yourself with a legally binding session agreement. So I, as a bass player, go to play on a track. I can tap into Soundbox Plays and create a legally binding session agreement with yourself, which means that I'm credited on the track. Okay.
That's amazing.
So it's pretty cool. It's like solving the problem from the beginning rather than down the line and creating headaches, basically. So that's what Soundbox Plays does. We want to make it easier for artists and also producers, like particularly producers, to catalog everything that they're doing, because producers could be working on like a few hundred tracks at a time. So it's just, everything's nice and neat. They've been credited where they need to be credited. And then afterwards, it's just a matter of putting it to catalog so that we can go to the collection management agencies around the world and collect for the artist. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to change the system, really, and showcase a different kind of tool for our artists to use. So we work, absolutely. It's like we want to particularly help session musicians and producers. Like, obviously we want to help everybody, but these are the people who, when we go to them, are like, oh, I didn't know about this. Oh my God, I could have missed out on so much. Even me, I've missed out because of this as well. Because, I would have been paid and never realized there was any royalties after that. I would have just done, the gig, as it were, and never thought about it again. So
it's creating that awareness, and it's amazing that you guys are doing that. I haven't heard, at least on my side, anyone doing something similar here in the US, and I am envious now. Because that's amazing. That's an amazing way to think about it, and to just provide an extra income for musicians and people who are really doing their job and putting their effort. And that's something that it's really, really cool. I heard that you guys have an app coming up.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
That's amazing. No, that's great.
Yep. So the app is going to be launched in the next 3 to 4 months, and we'll have a pre-order soon.
Awesome.
So you'll be able to get it on, the normal app stores for iOS and for Android as well. And that's when it'll be really, really cool, because you'll just, you'll be able to use your phone at the studio. But you can still use the website at the moment. We're collecting for artists already. But yeah, we're very, very excited about the app. Yeah.
Awesome. Are you guys working with people here in the US as well?
Yeah. So we have some artists in the US who have already signed up. We have artists in the UK, in South Africa, in Italy, Germany. So obviously we're fairly new, but we're not affiliated to any country in particular, which is cool. So we can represent artists around the globe.
So Soundbox Plays does collect royalties also for for artists, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we collect for anybody who's provided any relevant audible content to a track. And we do work with Sound Exchange in the US, for example. So we can collect from Sound Exchange for artists and producers and also labels as well.
That's amazing. So just to summarize, you should be collecting, of course, mechanical royalties, your publishing, and neighboring rights royalties. I know there's also, the sync royalties, and there are a bunch of other type of royalties that you get in other industries. For example, in gaming industry, if you're going to a movie or you name it. There's a lot of things out there, and that depends, on the artist and what they're actually trying to accomplish and all that. But those are the main. And now Soundbox Plays can actually do that for you as well, which is amazing. And they're doing something really, really great with artists over there. Things are moving. In a few years, things might change a lot. But looking forward to that app as well. Hope you guys are really successful with it and that you guys grow a ton. And also wanted to thank you because people should have places and people to work with who they're comfortable with and who they can actually trust. And you guys are doing an amazing job at that. And I appreciate that so much. Other than that, where can people find you? And I'm gonna leave all the notes here in the description, of course, of the show. But where can people find you, either in social media or your website? Just let me know.
Yep, sure. So we are at www.soundboxplays.com. So that's our website. Obviously, as I said, we will have an app coming in the next few months. So stay tuned for more information on that for the pre-order. Also, if you register on our website, there's a weekly newsletter which where we try to educate artists basically about how they can maximize their neighboring rights royalties potential. So there's just information about, like radio pluggers and things like that. So we try to help artists every week with that too. Then we're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, always at Soundbox Plays. And and people can reach out to us at support@soundboxplays.com as well if they have any questions.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Anna. And we should definitely have more conversations because I have a bunch of questions about other subjects as well. I would love to have you back on the podcast again sometime soon. And appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much, Orlando. It was great to speak to you today. And I hope people have at least a small bit more of an insight into what neighbouring rights royalties are. And look forward to speaking to you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much.